70% of the population of South Africans that pass away without a valid will, and the consequences are quite severe. So the first thing I would like to discuss here is the principle of the freedom of testation. So in the South African law, each person has the freedom of testation that he or she can nominate who the people or organizations are that receive your assets or your estate. So if you specify that in a valid will, of course the obligation of the executor would be to distribute the assets in terms of the will. But if you pass away without a valid will, the distribution of your estate is dealt with in terms of the Interstate Succession Act. Now, the Interstate Succession Act focuses on spousal relationship, descendants like children, and also blood relatives. So if you pass away without a will and you have a spouse and no children, your whole estate will be transferred to your spouse. So if you pass away without a will and you don't have a spouse but you have children, the children will receive your whole estate in equal shares. If you pass away without a will and you have a spouse and 2 children, for example, the spouse and the children would each receive a child share. So let's say you have 3 million available to distribute, your spouse would get 1 million and each child would also get 1 million. So if you pass away without descendants or children and a spouse, then your closest blood relative would receive your whole estate. So what is important here to understand that if one of your beneficiaries would be a minor child, that is a child under the age of 18, and you pass away without a will and a benefit goes to that minor child, then that fund would be paid into the guardian's fund, which is a government fund, and then the new guardian of the children would have to apply to this fund to have access to funds for the maintenance and education needs of the minor children. So that's why it's very important, especially when you have minor children, to ensure that you have a valid will and that you make provision that if a minor child would be the beneficiary of your estate, that the benefit to the minor child is paid into a trust and trustees would be appointed. Then the guardian of the children can apply towards the trust to have access to funds for the maintenance and education needs of the minor children. And then if you pass away without a will, of course, you did not appoint an executor. And if you have minor children, you also did not appoint a guardian for the minor children. So the process to follow then is that the family members would have to complete nominations and submit that to the Master of the High Court to appoint an executor and to appoint a guardian if applicable. So we often find that there could be disputes between family members because the one family member would like to appoint this executor and another family member would want to appoint another executor. So that's why it's important to rather complete a valid will to ensure that you also nominate the executor and the guardian in your will. We also find that if you administer an estate where we don't have a valid will in terms of the Interstate Succession Act, it could be more costly and it could be a lengthier process.